Okay, so caves. If you don't know already on this channel, caves are pretty cool. At least this channel seems to think so. To start off, let's talk about what a cave actually is. Now, a cave is a void in perhaps the hillside, perhaps it's a depression in the hillside, and it'll be big enough for a person to walk in or somehow get in. There is a huge misconception around caves, to my belief, that you walk in and you can just keep walking and you walk in a straight line and slowly every cave will get deeper and deeper and deeper until you're at the bottom of the cave and it's all very scary, and then you walk back up again and it's just walking. This is completely like the opposite of what caving is. Sometimes you won't be going deeper and deeper. Sometimes you'll be making your way up inside a mountain because the entrance was at the bottom of the mountain. So it only goes up and up and up inside the cave. So you might actually be gaining elevation. Not only this, if there is walking passage, you bet it's never a flat floor, especially in Britain. At the very least, you'll be walking through a river, but that river might have rocks in it. Perhaps there's no river, perhaps it's just a hall full of boulders. Maybe you're in a tight tube instead, and we've all seen these types of clips where cavers are stuck inside tight tubes. Goodness me. Some of those clips I cannot watch. I just feel like, oh, why are you doing this? And then I realise I kind of do that too. I don't know. In that way, you know, caves are very beautiful because they're so varying and no cave is the same. I have a cave that I particularly love and I have a cave that I don't particularly love. And the only reason I can actually give, none of it is scientific, I just feel that way because the vibe is off. Caves seem to have a big recurring effect on my life, and it's very strange. When I was a child, I used to have strange recurring dreams of being a mouse, and in this dream I used to cram my body into small cracks in the walls, pushing myself through tubes under my own home. And of course, dreams might not mean much, but it does feel like a coincidence that I'm now doing exactly the same thing about 10 or more years later. I was actually really overly cautious. I still am to this day. At least I didn't like the idea of going on adventures or outside in general. Going on walks and being in nature was something I didn't really do. And I didn't try to do that until my late teens, where when I went to university for the first time, I felt plagued with social anxiety. To the point it weighed down on me to the fact that I didn't want to leave my room at university in those first months. I didn't have any friends, but here's the interesting thing. I didn't seem to want to make any friends either, because the social isolation, I felt safe there. I felt safe being isolated. I felt safe being in my small four walls at university. And I never really wanted to try to get out until things got too much. You know, I couldn't walk on the road. It was too dangerous to walk on the pavement because I was scared. I was scared of strangers. I was scared of everybody and everything. And when it got unbearable, I actually stumbled upon the Caving Society. And I think this is a really interesting start to this video, that caves are magnetizing. And I thought, God, that looks like something I would never ever do in my whole life. And of course I need some help, so why don't I do something that I'd never ever do in my life? Let's go caving. Caves are fascinating throughout history, and I think they've been magnetizing to many different people throughout time. When I was in college, I studied the Odyssey by Homer, which is an ancient Greek story of Odysseus, a man who goes out into the wild, away from his wife and his child, to go into the unknown. And what does he do? But he stumbles upon a cave or two. In fact, in one cave, he fights off the big scary guy with one eye. Goodness, it's been a while since I've studied this. What's his name? The Cyclops. That's body. The Cyclops is hanging in his cave lair, and it's all scary and stuff because caves are inherently scary, right? And of course there's going to be a big scary Cyclops in the cave. But furthermore, caves can be used to reflect something completely different. It's not just scary, it's passionate. It's the passionate danger that belongs in caves too. Throughout Odysseus's travels, he finds a woman that he quite takes a liking for. And where does she take him? Oh, she takes him into a cave, a grotto of sorts, and proceeds to possibly marry her. And it's something I got taught a long time ago now. It's still debated whether it was marriage or not, but they lit some candles up inside this grotto and professed their words of love. And what a beautiful way to get married in the mystery of a dark, scary cave, in a space where humans are inherently vulnerable by any natural causes, like, let's say flooding in the cave or being crushed by a boulder. They obviously have no hard helmets on, and so they're incredibly vulnerable. Why would I talk about this without mentioning how all of this has been passed down over centuries and centuries? First, it was passed orally, obviously, but then when we wrote things down, we started to write things down, we wrote this story down, and over time it's been translated over and over again in different ways. This story has to be poignant in humanity, and how interesting that in the monsters it has and all the mystical, magical things, of course, it's going to have a cave. I keep saying that caves are scary, but why are they scary? Well, they are dark voids where people haven't really gone to many times, right? Before we had these big electric lights that cavers use now, people would just use a tea light, and if that goes out, you're in the void what feels like forever if somebody else isn't there to help you out. But it's cold, it's dark, it's wet, it's dangerous. Why would humans ever even like a place like this? Why would anyone go into the allure of the unknown? Perhaps there's something deeper to this all. In my humble opinion, my feelings when I look at Everest, for example, is, wow, that is so beautiful. And I think what's beautiful about it is how dangerous it also is. There's this side of it that I will never ever be able to conquer, because I just can't imagine the danger that it would put me through. And I find that so beautiful. There's something about quarries as well. Quarries when they're cut out of the landscape. And I know I'm not allowed to think they're beautiful because they're meant to be ugly, but they're these great voids in the landscape that look so desolate. And to me, it's that desolate thing, that idea of the fact there are no humans there because it's so dangerous. That's what makes it so enticing and so beautiful to be around. It was George Mallory once questioned why would he climb Mount Everest. He replied, because it's there. It's simply there. Why else wouldn't you do it? And I think a lot of people secretly have this wanting to find something more, even if there's nothing they can get back from it. Of course, objectively speaking, not all caves are pretty, but in other ways, caves are incredibly pretty because of the beautiful shapes that are formed by the water trickling through it, and the stalagmites and the stalactites and the habitats for bats. It can be a really beautiful place to be in. There is no denying that. It's just harder to put that down across to other people who might not have been caving. Or perhaps, again, if you see Mount Everest, you can objectively say it's pretty. But perhaps if you've not seen the full extent of a cave, you can't really say that it's pretty or not, because you can't see it all. No matter how many cave maps you're going to go through, you're just not going to get the idea of what it's like in there. Furthermore, not all the caves have been found in the world. Let me repeat that. Not all of the caves that exist have been found. There are so many more caves out there waiting for us to find them in every single corner of the world. We'll never even know if we found them all, really, realistically. But there is always an open for adventure. Many of my friends have found new bits of caves or new caves. All they've had to do is search. That's it. And as long as they keep searching, they will find something. And imagine what it's like to be an adventurer on that scale and go into a room that had never ever been entered before. That's what caving and caves can offer young explorers. Caves, in their own special way, create responsibility for the people that go into caves. They build character. Before I started caving, I have to admit that I think I was definitely soft. Soft is probably the word for it. And since going caving, it forced me to take on way more responsibility than I had ever even thought possible. When you're inside the cave, not only are you responsible for yourself because there's no stop signs or don't go here signs, you're not cushioned, so you have to take responsibility for yourself, but you also have to take responsibility for other people too. You have to be looking out for your friends, because if they get in trouble, everyone is in trouble. And you can't use your ego in caving, because if you did, then you will all die. Like, that's just a thing. You have to look out for each other. That's the bottom line. You have to understand also what kit will help you. If you just walk in with a jeans and a t-shirt in a British cave, you will find that incredibly uncomfortable and maybe get hypothermic. Who knows, if you stop moving, for sure. You have to know whether that cave floods in particular weathers or not. So all caves flood differently. And it's up to you to do your research into what cave floods in what kind of ways. Things like this, you need to take on responsibility for your own life and others' lives. Not only this, but caving can make you really fit, makes you very strong. You can't just go up these shafts willy-nilly. You can put me on record saying that, but you can't, because there's so much strength that you need to haul yourself up and up again and again on this rope. And by the 60 meter mark, you're just like, can I just go home? It's cold and I'm tired, but you have to keep going because you're in there, so you've got to get out. But aren't caves really dangerous? In many ways, caves are very safe. In other ways, they are very dangerous. So if I go into a cave where I know it's going to flood that day, I will expect to die. That's kind of the way things work. But there are other ways, like standing under a boulder, which you think looks a little bit like it's going to move any second now. There are many things you can do to avert this danger, but there will always be something there, like what we call as cavers hanging death. And hanging death is terrifying, right? And the idea that you can't get an ambulance easy underground is also very scary, right? There's no one there to help you if you die. In fact, I've had an anxiety recently where I get scared if I'm in tight tubes, not because I feel claustrophobic, or perhaps this is a symptom of claustrophobia, you tell me, but I feel in tight tubes scared because no one could comfort me if I did suddenly die in that spot. If I had a heart attack, etc., no one could be next to me because there's not enough room for somebody to be next to me. So I couldn't, look at anybody whilst I was dying. That stuff scares me. What a lot of cavers have to do is shake hands with death quite a few times. It gets really, really scary, and in a way, this can be healthy because it's a gift. It's like a silver lining. Perhaps maybe it's not healthy all the time, but it's definitely a silver lining where you can feel on good terms with death. Like, hey, I've almost come across you before and I'm not scared of you. Now, coming from a place where I was scared of death all the time, I didn't go caving, I didn't go outside, didn't leave my room, did not want to do anything because I was too scared of of being vulnerable. And to actually, as a caver, I think we've all opened ourselves up to the idea that, yeah, it's 100% possible that I can die. Why? Because I'm human. And I think a lot of people are not ready to have that conversation. And the silver lining about caves is that they offer you that. They offer you this, hey, by the way, you can die for no reason whatsoever, and it's just the way things are. And that is so scary, but there are times I still get scared, but once you make peace with it, on the main part, it's one of the most beautiful things I think a human could quite possibly experience. All those years ago, when I first joined my caving club, because it was the last thing I wanted to do when I was really depressed and anxious, something very particular happened when I went caving. I knew it was something that I was going to hate, but I thought I'm going to go in anyway. And so I did, and I was right. Of course I was right. I hated it. I thought, fucking hell, this is the worst thing that anyone could ever decide to do. And I'm not even sure why I went back, but I remember on my second trip, it was even more terrifying. I think I passed out through half of it, much to the annoyance of my team, who were trying to look after me through this squeeze. And I was in this squeeze, and I just remember everything kind of going a bit black and my breath getting heavy. And it wasn't a very good situation. But I remember coming out of the cave, and I realised that when I walked on the street and when I left my room, things were less terrifying. Mainly because I had experienced something that was so god-awful, terrifyingly awful. Like, who would ever want to experience that? But every time I seemed to go caving in that period of time in my life, once I came out, I realised that I was able to cross the street and not be scared of something that wouldn't happen. I could talk to people a bit better, and I could try new things without being scared that those things might kill me, because everything was the end of the world. And that's just what it was like with anxiety. And that seemed to melt away because I knew I had been through so much scarier than I ever thought possible. I think the world became safer because I trusted my own body as well. If I could make all those climbs and all those crawls inside a cave, then maybe going for coffee once in a while with a friend actually really wasn't that scary after all. Thank you for listening. This is the first time I've done a video like this. I really hope you liked it. It was a little bit more personal, but I hope you guys liked that, and give us a comment if you think that you'd like more like this, or if you have any questions. I can talk about caves all day. It's kind of sad, but also very exciting. So